I was a soldier in an army back in 2004 to 2008. I deployed to Iraq and spent 15 months there. I was severely wounded during an IED blast and had to get out once we were redeployed. During the explosion I had an out-of-body experience that I want to share with you. I myself is not a believer in supernatural, and to be honest to this day I don't know what happened to me that day. I enlisted as an infantryman, 11 Bravo, back in 2004. I was sent to Fort Polk, Louisiana as my first assignment. The unit I was assigned to 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment was moving to Fort Lewis, Washington. We were given an option of either moving to Fort Lewis or staying at Fort Polk. I chose to move to Fort Lewis. At the time, Army was fielding new type of brigade, a Stryker Brigade Combat Team, SBCT for short. I arrived to Fort Lewis in 2005. Checked out Seattle and Tacoma area. It was really pretty in the early winter. I still wasn't too used to the rain part, but I got used to it eventually. My unit at the time didn't even have a commander. It was being built completely from the scratch. We didn't have vehicles or even weapons. We spent most of our time doing PT and some training with rubber weapons. It was fun, since you couldn't really do much, but at the same time a lot of my friends were in Iraq getting blown up and shot at. It took long 2 years before this unit was deployed to Iraq. Our name was changed from 2nd Stryker Cavalry Regiment to 4 Halves SBCT. My battalion was 4th Battalion 9th Infantry Regiment, Bravo Company or Blowtorch as we called ourselves. My battalion received fancy land warrior system. Basically everyone had some kind of a network device in him. Our gear was also different from everybody else. We were first ones to receive combat shirts, IOTVs and stuff. The land warrior system was complete trash and it didn't work most of the time. It was just an extra weight, but our commander believed in it and had us use it. By use it I really mean wear it. We ended up going to Camp Taji, just north of Baghdad. It was a barely big forward operating base, with huge empty spaces. We ended up staying in old warehouses in the east side of the FOB. Just give you a quick orientation, the FOB Taji was essentially a big square. East part of the FOB was occupied by Iraqi forces, and west side was US and coalition. The US side also was sort of divided. West side was developed. It was where everything was, dining facility, PX, local shops. The east side close to Iraqi side was mostly empty with some warehouses where we stayed and a huge tank boneyard. It was pretty cool to see all of the weaponry that was there. Anything from Chinese to Russian tanks were there. It was like a Soviet tank museum. It was fascinating. We had to drive by it on the bus every time we went to dining facility. Oh, did I mention that west side didn't have a dining facility? Yes, there were buses on Camp Taji, believe it or not. Most of my days off I spent on the west side of the FOB, getting coffee, buying bootleg movies from local shops. I didn't want to spend my days at the warehouse. We were sleeping on the double bunks nearly touching each other. The 1st Cavalry Division was staying in the nice containerized housing units or CHUs. We had to rotate to a combat outpost Tarmaya. We did rotations there every 30 days. When this happened my company was about to go there. Just to give you a little idea where it was. There is a big highway called Route Tampa or Highway 1, that went straight north to Tikrit and Mosul. We would travel that route and then there was a right turn going east to a route called Route Coyotes. It was a really bad road. There were always vehicles getting blown up there, and soldiers dying. At the end of the route right before the river, there was a town called Tarmaya. It was famous because in 1981 Israelis destroyed some nuclear site near it via airstrikes. That's about the only piece of fame this place got. We had a combat outpost there, that my battalion manned. It was just a house surrounded by HESCO barriers. There was also a sniper there that was fairly famous, but I think we caught him later. Anyway, there was always a lot of traffic on that route, resupply convoys and route clearance guys looking for rides. I was AM-240 Bravo gunner. Most of the time I stuck out of the rear hatch of the Striker. My platoon was patrolling this route periodically. This very unfortunate day we were traveling west towards Route Tampa. We were about to set up some overwatch positions along the route because Brigade Commander wanted to visit Tarmaya, so we were just making sure there wouldn't be any accidents, you know. Well, as we were moving we took small arms fire from the south side of the road. We stopped and returned fire. It was our battle space, so we had to clean it up. Our platoon leader claimed that he saw where insurgents were, and he ordered my squad to flank them. We typically didn't like leaving a hardball road because Strikers were flat-bottomed. If you hit a landmine or IED it would a bad day. We had little blast blankets on the floor, but they wouldn't do much. At the time we didn't care. We infantry guys just want the action, so my squad leader took an order and told the driver to gun it around other vehicles, and take a dirt path to where he thought insurgents were. We took off driving. I was getting pumped for some action, but instead I felt the loudest blast ever. We had camo net on top of our Strikers obstructing the view for snipers. When blast went off I launched up, but got caught by the net. I blacked out, or at least I thought I did. I didn't feel pain, but I had a dream, like I was walking in some tunnel. I completely forgot who I was, and I felt peace. It was the most peaceful thing ever. I just kept walking and I walked into a light. It is hard to explain the peace I felt. All of my worries and fears had completely dissipated. I walked in the light and I ended up back home in Pennsylvania. I saw my house, and I saw my parents. They were just standing there, looking at me. I couldn't quite tell, but it looked as if they were looking at me like I died, like they were with my funeral. The physical senses were not present at this time. I couldn't hear, talk, walk. As a matter of fact, I didn't even feel like I had a body. But like I said before, I was not scared. I felt a peace. Then the picture started to get distorted. I started to see different colors, weird combinations and waves. Now I was no longer at home in Pennsylvania. I was entering a tunnel, full of vibrant colors. I was afraid to step forward. This was the first time I actually got scared. But I started walking. I walked and I walked, and a tunnel got darker and darker. Things got scarier and scarier. Finally I was able to enter another place. It was really bright. It looked like a huge white sphere, and I was inside of it. There was a bunch of little spheres floating around erratically, and there was also a figure. Couldn't make out what that figure was at a time, but finally I saw it. It was humanoid, almost looked like a Buddha. It had some kind of a red hat. I couldn't tell its facial features, but body features were definitely human. Like I said, I didn't feel like I had a body. The figure started to approach me. I didn't know what it was going to do. It was simply floating inside the sphere. At the moment I didn't feel scared. The figure did not look threatening. But to be honest, whatever this place is, you don't even know what threat is. Things are just different, than the emotions and feelings you experience do not exist here. And like I said, at this point I did not know who I was or what I was. The figure approached me and stopped. Couldn't tell if it had eyes, or to be honest I just don't remember. I could tell that it had a nose and a mouth. At this point I felt peaceful. It was a beautiful feeling. The most beautiful feeling I've ever experienced. It's hard to explain to a person that has his or her daily issues, deals with bills, traffic, horrible bosses and other stresses of life. When you strip all of that away, all you left with is peace. Not in some bullshit hippie sense of it, but the true inner peace that frees you from burdens of this world. The figure looked at me and then it crossed its arms like it was hugging itself. Immediately I was teleported. Now I was in a different place. I'm not entirely sure what that place was, but it was absolutely stunning. It was like I was on the scene of Harry Potter. Massive beautiful mountains with fog rolling down, and shining sun right in your face. I guess you can call it paradise or heaven, but I didn't see no angels or gods. I just felt peace and happiness. I stood there for what felt like forever. Suddenly I gained ability to move. It felt like I was in the God mode in some video game. I just kept floating around that place looking at everything, enjoying its beauty. I didn't have sense of time anymore, so I have no idea how long it's really been, or who I was before this. It was a very strange feeling of being free. Suddenly I started to feel like I was drowning. Feeling of fear returned to me. I slowly started to remember who I was and what happened. For a second I thought it was back home in Pennsylvania. But then I started to remember. I remembered that I was a soldier, and I was in Iraq in a war zone. I just couldn't remember past that. I couldn't remember what happened to me. All of a sudden I was able to open my eyes a little bit. I started to hear gunshots, and I have a machine gun blasting away. It felt like it was really far away from me, but it was getting closer and closer and louder, more conscious I became. I still couldn't really move. I couldn't feel my legs or my right hand. To be quite honest, I didn't even care for feeling it, but memories started to come back, and feeling of my extremities also came back to me. I finally remembered who I was and what happened. Then I felt a huge rush of energy. I got up and ran down the ramp of the striker. I just kept running until I saw some cover. In my hands I had an M4 carbine. That was my secondary weapon. I saw the insurgents out in distance and I attempted to engage him. I kept squeezing the trigger but nothing was coming out. I mean like nothing. Then I saw two of my buddies just standing there. By standing there I meant like they stood in the line of fire. They were motionless. I also saw other squads maneuvering towards us while engaging insurgents. I saw insurgents run away. I heard of not patch out in a distance, but I was still confused about what was happening. Finally, 3rd Squad Striker was able to get to ours. Ram dropped and they ran out. Then I noticed that the ramp on my striker was actually up. How the fuck did I get out? I started to yell at him to let him know where I was, but nobody was responding. I even ran Thorson, but it was like I was not even there. The guys from my squad, they were just standing there, were very still. I saw them looking at me with blank eyes, like lifeless eyes. The guys from the other squad were able to climb up inside a striker and emergency drop the ramp since all of the vehicle power was off after the blast. That's when I was in YHE state of shock. I saw my body being pulled out by the guys. What is going on here? I moved towards my body, and I just stood there looking at myself, trying to rationalize what was happening. I died. Yes, I died, and God or whatever it was showing me the proof, I thought. I saw the guys from my squad looking at their bodies as well. It's like we were all waiting confirmation. When they saw their bodies being pulled out, they both started walking slowly in the same direction. It's like some invisible magnet was pulling them in. I didn't feel anything yet. Things started to slow down around me. I just felt that feeling of peace again. Both of my squad members disappeared at this point. I saw my squad leader being pulled out. He conscious and alive. I felt kind of bad for him, I don't know why. Then I got yanked out of that state. Everything went dark, and I started feeling the pain. It was horrible. I heard medic yell, "He has a pulse." But my vision was blurry, and again I didn't remember who I was. My identity was stripped away as my body was dying. I fell unconscious again, and then again, until finally I woke in the hospital. Nurse told me I was in Germany, and that I was okay. A chaplain came and talked to me too, asking how I was doing. I told him that I don't remember much. He told Nay that 2 of my squad mates passed as a result of this blast. Everything I said before I didn't remember at all. It all came back to me after I went to Peru and consumed some ayahuasca. That brought all of these memories back. And now I remembered everything. I'm still wondering if souls of my buddies are still there patrolling streets of Tarmaya and wondering what their next mission is. Hoping that they are coming home alive to see their friends and family. Hoping to go to college one day and get married. However, looking at it now, maybe death is not such a horrible thing. Maybe it's still life but in a different form. I don't know, but I hope that my buddies got to their heaven. And they are happy looking down at us.